Hey guys, Keith from Kigland, and today we are making an awesome, delicious gourmet baked bean. This is a recipe I've developed myself, been tweaking it over the last little while. This is actually a gourmet baked bean with bacon, bourbon, and smoked malts. Now, I'm actually using the Weyermann smoked malt, really easy to get all around the world. What I love about these Weyermann smoked malts, they already have a bit of a kind of like a bacony kind of aroma to the smoke that you get off them. So when you smell that, you can sort of appreciate how well this goes with a gourmet baked bean. Now, a lot of you guys out there think baked beans, I can just buy $1 can of baked beans at the store, but honestly, you cannot compare those crappy supermarket baked beans to these gourmet style baked beans. Now, also because I'm using meat in here, I'm gonna do some pressure canning today. So the bacon that's going in here means that it could potentially go off, could get botulism and stuff like that down the track. So look, really to prevent that, I'm gonna pressure can, get that temperature up to 120 degrees, around about there. And that way I don't have to refrigerate this either. So it makes a great recipe if you want to take it camping or something like that, at a hiking where you've got no refrigeration, or just want to store it in your cupboard and not take up fridge space and store it for months on end. Now, I should say this is also a good introduction for us for our new cans or jars that we've got on our website. These new canning equipment and jars and stuff like that are available in a few different sizes. So we've got the 330, 500, and the 1 litre size of jars available. They're very, very similar to the Ball, branded jars. Ours have smooth sides, so they're easy to put labels on, but similar type of, two-piece lid essentially, and also perfect for both water bath canning and pressure canning. Now, the other thing in this recipe, I'd said bourbon, so I'm going to use some of the jars that I'm going to basically make these baked beans into. I'm going to add and spike with a little bit of our Impressence bourbon flavor shot. Now, this particular bourbon essence is actually better than even using real, bourbon for two reasons. Firstly, a whole bottle of bourbon is going to cost you more money, so that's just silly. And the second thing is when you're putting bourbon into a canning recipe, you have to boil all the alcohol off so you can get up to those high temperatures of pressure canning as well. And that's kind of like also a little bit annoying. So, to avoid that issue with the alcohol being in there, look, you're better off just using the essence from that perspective. So this Kentucky, bourbon essence is one which I feel works really well with this recipe. But look, my kids are not massive fans on that bourbon flavor, so I'm going to do like some of the baked beans without that one. Anyway, let's get into it. I should also say with these types of jars, you can also do non-pressure canning. So you can basically use one of our Digiboils to do water bath canning, and they're great for fruit preserves and stuff like that. The lids are all compatible with the 3 different, jar sizes, which is kind of nice. So that way you don't have to worry about keeping that exact match. All the lids on the underside are coated with a PE resin. So basically that means you're not going to have issues with the lids rusting so easily when you've got the product in the jar, and they're also resistant to acidic products, things like tomato base, which is what I'm using in here. Lastly, we also have a couple accessories for the jar, and we're going to have more accessories down the track with these jars as well. Things like sort of airlocks, we want to ferment in the jars and stuff like that too. But for the moment, these are now in stock. These just came in last week. So these are sort of like a leak-proof lid. So generally speaking, a lot of people who are canning, they use this lid, take that off, and then this is a little bit more convenient lid, the one-piece lid, which screws on down like that and has a silicone seal under that lid as well. So, for just general use, I would recommend these purple lids. Anyway, let's get into the recipe so you guys can make this really tasty gourmet baked bean recipe at home yourself. So these are all the ingredients you need for this recipe. I'm gonna put all the exact quantities in the description below. Basically, I've got these kind of chunky ingredients over here and ones that I'm gonna add into the individual jars. And then I've got a bunch over here, the sauce and spices, which I'm gonna mix together. So going through the list, got the Kentucky bourbon, got the Weyermann Beech Smoked Malt. I'm actually using the dry beans. Look, dry beans are the most economical way to purchase beans, so surely, that makes the most sense. You can, buy cans of beans already hydrated, crack them open, then put them in this recipe. If you do that, just remember you have to reduce the amount of water. So when you get dry beans, you only have to add about 1/3 of the bean amount per weight, if that makes sense. So if you're using, like, let's say 1 kilo of wet beans, then you only need about 333 grams of dry beans, for instance. So with these dry beans, yeah, I'm using the red kidney beans and also these cannelli beans. Look, any type of beans that you want to put in will work pretty well with this recipe. Butter beans work really well, I would say, those bigger ones. I'm also using some bacon. I've got some bacon chunks over here. You could actually use pork or beef chunks as well, work pretty well. And also some onion. I've actually just really roughly chopped it up into chunks of onion like that. All the dry spices I've got here, you can also switch some of these in and out if you really wanted to. I've got brown sugar, mustard powder, chili powder. Look, I kind of like them quite spicy, so I put in quite a bit of chili powder. I've got cumin, pepper, and this is actually chipotle seasoning, but you can also swap that for, if you can't find that, you can use smoked paprika, works quite well, and then salt. And then also I've got some liquid ingredients here. I've got a little bit of soy sauce, just for that sort of slight umami kind of flavor. And then I've got some, basically some garlic in here. I've got ketchup, so just, you know, whatever cheap ketchup you can find will work pretty well. And then I've got some of this passata. This is actually some homemade passata I made a while ago, so I've got some of that in there, and apple cider vinegar just to acidify it a little bit more. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna empty all these ingredients together in the bowl like this and mix them all together. No need to cook any of this. Obviously it's going into the pressure cooker anyway, so we're just gonna put all cold ingredients, uncooked, raw, into these jars, and then we're going to put it in the pressure cooker. So once I've got all these wet ingredients in here, all I'm trying to do is basically combine all these so they're all homogeneous, so that way when I spoon it out or pour it into the jars, I'm getting an even proportion of all the spices in each jar. All right, all those ingredients are looking pretty well evenly dispersed amongst these jars here like that. Got a bit of bacon. I also chucked in a bit of onion in each jar just for a bit of extra flatulence. And now what I'm gonna do is go around and pour in this tomato mixture. So this is tomato and all those spices. Once again, haven't been cooked, no need to, because they're all going up to 120 degrees in the pressure cooker anyway. And now I'm gonna go around and evenly distribute this into the jar. Now don't go too high. Once again, with pretty much any type of canning, you wanna leave a bit of space in the top. If you overfill them, you can get some siphoning type of effect, basically meaning the jars are gonna basically go over the top and some of the liquid's gonna come out. You really don't want that. So yeah, just distribute this liquid evenly amongst all the jars best you can. So with these two-piece lids, the whole idea of them being two-piece is so we can do these up finger tight, but also allow gas to escape when it's in the pressure cooker. So what I do is put the lid on like that, put the lid down and put this ring on top and just do it to the point where I'm holding the lid with just the tips of my fingers. So don't crank it down like this because that'll be way too tight. Just with the tips of your fingers and tighten it up with the tips like that. And that's how you know it's tight enough. That means it's tight enough that the lid's kind of held down. And that way it'll suck down when the pressure drops from the pressure cooker, but still when the pressure increases, it'll allow the lid to just pop up a little bit and allow gas to escape. Now this is the pressure can that I'm using. This was nothing too special. I bought this one online and it was pretty cheap. I think it's like about a 30-litre size, which I think is a pretty good size for things like pressure canning. But what I've done is made a couple small mods to it. What I've done is basically put a little thermowell in the side, and I'm also using this wrap temperature control box to control the temperature. Now there's a couple reasons I'm doing that. Firstly, I find it really annoying when I'm canning inside, especially if I'm boiling it for an hour. So this will be about an hour process, in which case steam is constantly blowing out of the top. It's kind of annoying, fills the room with moisture, and that's really frustrating. But the other thing is I also use the wrap temperature controller to control the timing of the process. So what happens is this will basically, I play a profile, and as you know, there's lots of wrapped profiles that you have on our wrap portal. So for our wrap connected device, you can just make up a profile. This particular profile will heat up to over 110 degrees and then a timer will begin. It basically will then cook for about 1 hour. And then after that hour at over 110 degrees, the timer will turn off again. So that's how I've made this profile. So I'm gonna stack these in there. So one of the other benefits of using a temp control box, of course, is because the steam valve is not opening up and blowing a whole lot of steam to atmosphere, I also never have to worry about the element in this unit boiling dry. Anyway, so I've got all the jars in there. I'm gonna put the lid on like this and do all of these little wing nuts up like so. And then instead of plugging obviously this heating element into my wall socket, I'm going to chuck this straight into my wrap temperature control box like so. And then what I'm going to do is start the profile that I've made here, and away we go. And that's all done. So what I'm gonna do is just leave this and then come back in a couple of hours. The whole process should have already been completed, and probably in a couple of hours, it already would have started to cool down quite a bit as well. Now, we've just got back from lunch. I served up some of these baked beans to a couple of the staff, and they absolutely love that bourbony baked bean flavor. Look, I had a few myself. Ooh, cheapers. I didn't know bourbon could smell like that. Anyway, we've just finished up some of these baked bean toasties, and they're absolutely delicious. Also a great little gift. If you want to give one of those to a friend or something, I think it's awesome. And so awesome that you can do so many different things in these jars, like even spag bowl and stuff like that. You know, doing that so you don't have to refrigerate it. Meat in jars is kind of awesome, I reckon. But if you want to hear about any other cool new stuff that's coming out, bottom right-hand corner, hit subscribe now. And of course, hit the notification bell icon. That's so you get notified when new videos like this land. If you want to hear about also other cool stuff we're bringing out, join our Facebook homebrew community group, where we've got other guys just like yourself sharing tips and tricks on how to use all this gear. Anyway, that's it, and see you guys next time. Oh, jeebus. I gotta go to the bathroom.